Hello, everybody. So today I want to talk about Transmedics. Transmedics is about a 1.5, almost 2% position for me, especially now that the stock is up. This is a stock that I was happy to buy after redoing more research on the product. The first time I covered this stock, I was a little dismissive of it. The second time I realized that there's a lot of good things going for this stock, and it is still an inexpensive stock, I want to say. I'll get to the next slide and show why the stock is still inexpensive, but the stock, in my view, has gotten a little more expensive because the outlook is either A, very much sandbagged, or B, there is a market slowdown coming up for this company because they're only guiding between 49 and 51% revenue growth in 2024, which is so down compared to what it used to be. This was a company growing at more than 120%. So, I'm feeling something a la Snowflake when Snowflake did that to us in 2022. It's like, why would you guide a revenue growth so low? Are you just setting yourself up for success because you just want to guide so low? Anyways, I'm a little annoyed by the low guidance. So that's why let me hold this thought back from my analysis and first tell you about the stock, and then we'll get to the numbers and to the guidance. What is the stock? What is Transmedics? Transmedics is an organ transplant machine system. It's the only FDA-approved technology platform that allows you to transfer organs under living conditions. This machine keeps the organ alive while you transfer it, and by doing that, it makes the organ much fresher when you have a surgeon come and transfer it into a new body from an organ donor. It lengthens the amount of time that we can keep an organ live in the machine, and it's a step change. It's a 0 to 1 move in this market, because in the past organ transplant, you would only use dry ice, and dry ice was a problem. Many organs arrived essentially dead by the time they need to travel across the country from the donor to the receiver, to the patient receiving the transplant. And of course, this machine, which is essentially an ex vivo organ survival machine, this machine has outstanding clinical outcomes. And feel free to pause this and look at the quality of these clinical outcomes right here, which is why the product is heavily getting adopted across the United States. That's the first innovation of Transmedics. And the second innovation of Transmedics is that they launched their own platform, which they call the NOP, the National OCS Platform. NOP stands for National OCS Platform. That's the second innovation of this business. Not only do they have a medical innovation, but they also have a business model innovation, in the sense that they've bought a flight school, which used to be a flight school. They bought a flight school to get brand new airplanes on the cheap. They shut down the flight schools. They rebranded the plane. They kept the pilots that were hired by that flight school, and they now created these organ transplant planes. So now when they sell their service to transplant centers, not only do they sell the service of the machine, the Transmedics machine, the organ care system, but they also sell the transportation. So they've become a platform that whenever there is an organ donation that becomes available, the whole OCS platform gets put in place, where you have both the plane and the organ. And this is due to the fact that organ transplants, many organs went to be wasted because they cannot be transported on commercial airlines. They could only be transported on private airlines, and it just happens that one day out of every 3 or 4 days, no private jets are available in the US because there's a sporting event somewhere or a concert somewhere, and private jets are not always available. And sometimes you would have organs go to waste because, oh, wait a minute, it's the Super Bowl day and there's no private jets available. So too bad, all of the donors of that day, all of the organs go to waste. And that changes with that, because now they have a fully dedicated airline on standby, ready to move the organs, and that is all they do. So it's an interesting company. It's a mix of both this organ survival machine and this organ transportation machine, and this is their common center. And obviously it's all 24/7. This is an extremely time sensitive product. They gotta be on top of their game 24/7. And they hope to gain a major share of this market, and some might say they could even get a 70 to 80% share of this market, which would put them in the camp of a near monopoly, which is why a congressman, Gopher from Arizona, a congressman from Arizona attacked them a few days ago, saying that what they were doing is bad because they become a monopoly, and this is a sensitive sector, which I had highlighted. That this was a sensitive sector. This is a sector that makes people uneasy, and of course the congressman that criticized them on the political aisle is from a more religious angle, and obviously religion is not okay. Many religions are not okay with this very unfortunate situation, and that's one of the reasons why I was uneasy at first covering it. But nonetheless, there's going to be some backlash for this company and for what they do, and especially I'm not even going after the next wave. If you read the call, if you look at the presentation, right, they're talking about international expansion, so that adds another layer of complexity to the business. I just want to stick to the number and be objective and stick to the numbers. And the negative of the numbers hence my question: did the outlook disappoint? Well, the outlook disappoints me enough to be done adding to my shares, and I'm done adding, and I'm not adding to my shares now, and I'm just keeping this stock for the long run, and it will do whatever it does. And if in 2030 it's a monopoly, great. If not, I don't think this is going to be a bad stock to own in general. I think they have a monopoly or a near monopoly lined up for them. But Transmedics, so the stock had a great run. The market really loved the earnings, and of course they would love the earnings. Why would the market love the earnings? Because they've just achieved GAAP profitability. They've just reported a net income of $4 million, which I think is the main reason why the market loved the earnings, despite the fact that the gross margin dropped a whole 6% compared to a year ago. And the revenue growth actually is still stellar, and what's still a company, the stock is still growing at more than 100% year over year in terms of revenue growth. What stunned me, cash on hand is great. What stunned me with them is that guidance, that outlook. They gave an outlook for 2024 of 360 to 370 million, which only would be between 49 and 53% growth. So if I take the midpoint here of 51%, I'm getting a stock at a 0.36. So still a cheap stock, but it's now second tier cheap. It's not first tier cheap. If you remember, when I was covering this stock compared to all of the hyper growth stocks I cover on the channel, it used to be first tier. Well, yeah, because my spreadsheet rewards companies that grow. Whenever a company is going to grow at 70, 80, 90%, my spreadsheet is going to overwhelmingly going to reward them. And so I have a hint that this guidance, 360 to 370 million in 2024, I have a hint this is heavily sandbagged. And I realize I say most of my companies sandbag, but this is true. There is no upside for the CEOs to tell you what they think it's going to be, because there's only downside for them to tell you really what they think it's going to be. So they have an incentive to underestimate. And when you look at TMDX, you could even say their track record of beating their guidance handsomely is 100. Like, look at this. December, they beat by 18.5% revenue. September, beat by 35%. June, beat by 23%. Like, how much of a low guidance are you giving each time so that the analysts always get surprised? So the moral of the story is this is probably going to be a stock that is still going to be growing at 70 or 80%, but that's not what they've guided. They've only guided 51% revenue growth. And so when I look at this at my spreadsheet and I input 51%, which is the guidance, the stock is cheaper than the average stock that I cover, but it's not in the first tier. Now, if I were to get to 70%, it's a much better valuation. If I were to get to 100% revenue growth next 12 months, let's assume they achieved 100%, then this valuation would be a steal, an absolute steal. So in my view, compared to what I was buying at, I find that the stock has gotten expensive. I'm up slightly on the stock, and I'm happy about that. And right now, I'm still focusing on my top opportunities in the portfolio, especially in this space where you have a company like Lantheus, for example, that in the medical space, or even HIMSS. Even HIMSS is not exactly the sick care space, right? HIMSS is more of a healthcare space. But this is a space with a lot of potential. I'm seeing better opportunities right now, whether it is Shockwave Medical or Lantheus, if we're going to focus only on the medical device space. That's why I'm focusing on those stocks right now. Happy with my position, like I said, under 2%. I'm happy with my position in this stock, happy to own it for the long run. I think they are pretty safe from a monopoly standpoint, but I would like to see either that valuation come down to match the 50% predicted growth, or that 50% predicted growth to be blown out of the water by the stock that keeps growing at 80% revenue growth next 12 months. So it's either or. Nonetheless, very fascinating company. And this is just my take on the last earnings. So no investment advice, no financial advice, just entertainment. Hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.